This thing's still on? As you've probably noticed, this channel has been empty for a couple years now. My resolution for 2023 was to start making long-form content again. So I'm promptly getting to work on that in 2024. But before we get to covering all the Ridgeback related topics people have asked me to post about, I figure I should catch you up on where we've been and where we're going. First, we cleared out of Chicago about 18 months ago and moved to the Upper Valley on the border of Vermont and New Hampshire. We love where we are, but a big piece of my heart will always be in the Windy City. And I owe a deep debt of gratitude for my time there. So I want to take a few minutes now to share my thanks. After our road trip around the country, Chicago is where Echo and I met Emily. The plan was for a temporary stay during her medical residency, but it turned into a decade-long adventure. Despite living in an apartment not much wider than we were, we always made room for love. And a little mayhem. We never lacked challenges or chaos, but we never lacked joy either. Every day, my dogs helped me figure out who I was and who I wanted to be. So when Emily and I got married, there was never a doubt about who the ring bearer would be. Our family started and grew in Chicago. We moved on up to the east side, finally got ourselves a little piece of the pie, and a lot of space when we realized we spent all our money on the apartment and couldn't really quite afford to buy couches for it just yet. The pups didn't seem to mind. My life seemed to be coming together in the most amazing way. Until it all fell apart when Echo died suddenly. To spare you from the sound of me weeping about it all these years later, I won't linger on his death here. But in the description below, I'll share some of what I've written about what that loss meant, and how it was an inflection point in my own life. The morning after Echo died, we learned Emily was pregnant. I wasn't ready to be a father. Without Echo, I wasn't ready to be me. Out of desperation more than desire, we brought a little blockhead home just months before Emily's due date. That time was a boot camp for my soul. A daily marathon of grieving and loving and preparing and fighting to keep my heart pointed towards the future instead of the past. Together, Em, Penny, and Zero helped me remake myself. They helped me smile and laugh again. And most importantly, they reminded me to be willing to risk my heart no matter the cost. So when Lincoln was born, I was ready to do just that. If not quite ready for anything else. Fortunately, as always, I had my dogs to guide me. Together, we all grew up. Learning, failing, trying again, exploring, loving. For a young family, Chicago was an incredible place to find ourselves. And just when we started figuring things out, we threw life in the blender again. Quinn joined our family in 2019, and we began the process of discovery all over again. Again. Time is a circle, and so too is love. When you hitch a ride on both, I found they both find their way back around. But so too do difficult times. In the very early days of COVID, before anyone knew much about anything, Emily was working 18-hour shifts at the hospital in head-to-toe protective covering, and despite us having a newborn, we weren't even sure if we should be living together. I feel so fortunate that our troubles never turned to tragedy. But quarantine in a fourth-floor walk-up apartment with 2 big dogs and 2 little kids definitely forced us to re-examine our life. I don't think anything necessarily changed, but I do think the experience accelerated us towards where we wanted to be going. Somewhere we could spend more time in more open space, doing more of the things that bring us the most joy. Somewhere us and the kids and the dogs could have more freedom and more adventures. This isn't a knock against Chicago. For a town that gets so much negative press and national coverage, it's one of the greatest cities in the country. If you've never been, visit. If you're looking for a place to start your own life, move there. I'm a kid from Jersey, but I'm a guy from Chicago. From starting a family to starting a business, Chicago is where so many of the most important parts of my life began. If you ever find yourselves on the shores of Lake Michigan, looking at that beautiful skyline, you can be just about sure that the sand underneath your feet was run upon by Echo, Penny, or Zero. And if you ever have the opportunity to take your dog to Montrose Beach at sunrise, please do. I promise your day and your life will be better for it. But for us, it was time to say goodbye. Say goodbye, Chicago!
Bye, Chicago! Bye, Chicago! Bye, Chicago! Bye, Chicago!
After one last dive into the lake, the pups and I closed up shop, making one final memory in the apartment that held so many. The circle continued as we arrived at an empty rental a few days ahead of the moving truck. The blank canvas was good for all of us. Over the past year and a half, we've filled it the way the dogs have taught us, with reckless enthusiasm for adventure. Whether that's a walk on the trail just outside our door, or a hike to the top of a mountain. This move brought us closer to so many of the places and spaces we wanted, but it still feels like we're finding our legs. And definitely still trying to find a home. So if you know of anyone who wants to sell me a little hobby farm in the area, drop me a line. I continue to share our daily updates over on Instagram, and our shop with Ridgeback plush toys and apparel is still open. So I'll put those links in the description below as well. But I'll also be back to these long form videos as often as I can. So if I slip up, please feel free to yell at me. If you have any topics about life with Ridgebacks you'd like covered, as always, just let me know. Thanks. Nice to be back again.